Okay, welcome to this live stream that I'm doing. This is going to be a new sculpting session. In the past sessions, we've done this bodybuilder study, a small bodybuilder study. That took us about 3 of these live sculpting sessions to get it to this point. Happy with that, where that's at right now. And last time we did a small foot study just to show you some of the forms of the foot, how to get it started, and in a way that that hopefully is a little bit better than what you guys have been able to do in the past. And so that was the last, or the one that we did yesterday. Today is the 8th. So let me zoom in just a little bit more. So today we are going to be sculpting a new sculpture from a new reference, something a little bit different. Well, not that different, kind of similar to the drawings that I've been doing during these live streams. A kind of a gymnastics type pose. And with this one, I was thinking it would be cool. I've thought in the past about doing a design where the whole sculpture could be kind of encased or framed. So it's a 3D sculpture, but it's framed inside of a box. And that way it could like go up on a wall like a picture frame, but be a 3D sculpture. So that's something that I wanted to experiment with. Somebody says, hey, hello. And if you're watching live on YouTube, you can comment, you can ask questions if you have any. I'm going to be using this aluminum wire armature. Let's see. I do need to zoom out just a little bit. It's going to be a little bit larger. The sculpt is going to be a little bit larger than the one I was doing. So hopefully you guys will be able to see. And yeah, let's get right into it. So let's see, this is kind of a handstand pose. The hands above the head. Head is bent back quite a bit. And the spine as well. Legs coming up, forward. Feel like the shoulders are coming down a little bit more, and then the arms are straight. Let's do that. But this first part is just, I'm just capturing the pose, bending at the joints, trying to find everything. Hello, you are so creative. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But creativity is just, just borrowing from what other people have done. So in that sense, I'm not very creative, but I do try to borrow from, other good artists. So let's see, this is the wrist right here, so bending at the wrist. Same thing on this side, bending the wrist. Something. It's starting to resemble the reference, but I feel like the hips, let's see, or this spine is still coming this way more. And maybe a little bit more like that. very flexible. And then also I was thinking in the reference, her arms are pretty much at the same level, but I was thinking that something that might be a little bit more interesting is having one arm, kind of one arm more in front, one arm more behind, so that from the side view you can still see both arms. That's something that I just felt like I might want to change. And there's, you know, there's things that you can. So almost always something you want to change. You don't want to copy the reference exactly, unless, you know, maybe you took the reference and it was the exact pose that you wanted. But if you're gonna have it be a work of art that can stand on its own, you usually want to think about how could I take what I'm seeing and make it just a little bit better. And I like this. Let's see, this foot coming across. Then the toes are pointed. So that means that the heel kind of stays where it's at, and the toes come around, something like that. So almost like she's going to be walking on her hands. And then I also want it to look good from either angle. So with this, I wonder, would it look better? Forward. I wonder if it would look better if I changed the pose. So, well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to change it that much. But something I'm thinking is maybe something, you know, like this, almost like she, and then having a frame around. I don't know. Let's do it a little bit closer to what we're seeing, and then we'll decide if we want to change it. We can always change it as it gets going. Okay. Somebody's asking, how long have you been sculpting for? I got into it in college, so it's been like 8 years, 9 years that I've been sculpting seriously. I did a little bit in high school, but just like one thing or one assignment. But yeah, I really got into it in college. I was gonna do pre-physical therapy, something that maybe it would have been a little bit more practical. But then I just loved working with sculpture and being creative, and I loved art. I've always loved art, but I just didn't think I could make it work, and so now I'm just trying to make it work. Let's see, this something like that. That feels pretty good. Okay, I have some clay that I've warmed up. Let me see if it's warm enough. Yeah. That I warmed up in the oven for a little bit. I just put it in a pan. Here's the pan. Oh, got an alarm. So I just put it in this pan and warm it up on the lowest temperature that the oven can go, which is like 170, but like 150 degrees is a little bit better. This gets a little bit too warm if I leave it in there for a long time. But then, you know, I have something that's a little bit softer, easier to work with, and it's great for these beginning stages where I'm just trying to cover the armature, which I'm going to be doing right now. Just a layer of clay over the whole armature, maybe just a little bit extra in these primary areas of the pelvis, the rib cage. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And because it's the beginning, I can take bigger chunks of clay in areas where I know I've got plenty of space to build out the forms. I can take it and just wrap it around the armature like I'm doing here. Somebody says, I like the new beard, rocking the new look. Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, my wife prefers it as well, says I look better, which I probably do. It really changes the shape of your face. It is kind of, somebody says that, or I've seen it online, that a beard for men is kind of like makeup for women, where it's just changes your look quite a bit. Covers up any of those pesky imperfections that we all have. Though I wish, my beard's, it's not a particularly thick beard, especially up here on the sides, but but I think it is better than my disgusting naked face in public. But right now I'm kind of letting it grow out, seeing like how long until it starts to bug me. I found that like the most annoying phase of facial hair is like, I think when it's just starting to grow in, it's like sandpaper, and then when you're just starting the beard, it's like very itchy and it's new, and so it's kind of uncomfortable. But then once you've had it for a little while, then then you just get used to it, and a little bit better. Yeah, I think beards are becoming more in style now. They were kind of out of style for a while, and there's a lot of institutions that had regulations against facial hair. In fact, even the church that I'm a member of, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I think it currently, I don't know if it's an official policy, but it's kind of discouraged. And certainly, if you're a missionary for the church, then they want you to be clean shaven. But I wonder if that'll change, because that's, it's not a doctrine, it's not a point of doctrine, it's just kind of a church policy currently. And then there's also like the military has a similar policy, and I wonder if they're going to start to change that, because I think that well, with regards to the military, beards actually help in combat, because if you're hit in the face, like you're in hand-to-hand combat and you're hit in the face and you have a beard, it actually does, it protects you a little bit. The hair helps prevent your jaw from breaking. So they suspect that people that have thick beards, their ancestors did more fighting, hand-to-hand combat type stuff. I don't know if that's true, but that's a speculation I've heard. And so there's an argument to be made for that in the military, just a practical, like, safety argument, that if you're in the military, you should be protecting yourself. And then in the church, I think there's also a moral argument to be made that I mean, our church, one of the things I love about it is it's all about family and marriage, strong marriage, and all of that. And so there's an argument to be made from that angle, that some wives just prefer their husbands to have beards. Like, my wife thinks I look better with a beard. And so from that angle, you could say, well, isn't it kind of a moral imperative that the church encourage husbands to be attractive to their wives? So I think that there's also an argument to be made from that angle. So I'm becoming more pro beard, as I more radicalized in the beard community. No, not really. But I do think I look better with a beard. So thanks, and I appreciate that. And that is I guess, a tangent, maybe something I've been thinking about that is off topic. Though sometimes, in these videos, if you try to be talking the whole time, I've kind of decided, I don't have to be talking the entire time, and I'm comfortable uh, with with that. But maybe I should be, maybe if I was more entertaining, I'm sure that these live streams would get more. But these live streams are not really about, getting lots of views. It's just a way to keep myself consistent with daily sculpture, which I'd been kind of falling out of the habit because I'm just working on other things. I'm remodeling the house, and I'm, editing, or I'm just doing other stuff. And I just didn't, if you don't make time for being creative, you fall out of the habit. And I don't think that that's a good thing. So this is my way of trying to get back into the habit. So yeah, I'm starting with the torso, building out the torso, and let's see. Now I'm coming down to the legs, just getting some rough, what I call the primary forms in place, rough estimations of the mass in those areas. Yeah, somebody says, never stop sculpting. You helped us get more into it. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to be a good example of staying up to staying in touch with those creative skills and stuff. And I enjoy it, it's something I love. But it is difficult, Life happens. If you don't make time for creativity, then you're not creative. Something that sometimes I'll tell the story of my grandmother, who's still alive. She's 95. Just had her 95th birthday, almost 96 now, coming up on that. But often when I see her, she expresses regret for not being more artistic in her life, because she loved drawing and painting, and then she never pursued it. And the excuse that she gave was, well, she just always had an excuse. So originally it was that one of her kids ate some of her paint, and then she didn't feel like it was safe to have the paints in the house, so she got the paints out of the house. And when I hear that, I'm like, well, that happened 50 years ago. 50 years ago? Maybe 60 years ago. Yeah, 60 years ago. And your youngest moved out of the house, 50 years ago or whatever it's been. I don't know. But all those years she's been able to find reasons not to do it. And it's too bad, because she was talented and she could have been a great artist, and she could have done that, and she let other things get in the way, which life will get in the way if you let it. So it's something that if you're serious about it, you have to prioritize. Even if you're doing other things, if you're working or you got kids around. But I think, art is one of the things that you can do with, even if you have a family, you have kids, and you're trying to be creative, kids will do that with you. If they see that it's something that you like doing, then they'll start to mimic that and do it with you, and it can be something that you do together. And art is fun that way. Even if it doesn't become your job, which for the majority of people this will never be, the way that they earn a living. Even the majority of people that are interested in the arts, it's hard to make a living in the arts. But for those people, I'd say, well, that's fine. It's fine not to be a professional artist, or to pursue it once you've retired, like that's totally fine. There are many other worthy occupations you could have. But if you are serious about it, just set aside time, even an hour a day, or like these half-hour sessions. You know, it's enough to do something. It's enough to get started. And this clay is starting to firm up. Once it becomes room temperature, it's a lot harder to manipulate. That's why I like warming it up. Let me see. So in this session, I might just get to the point where everything's covered with clay. Well, maybe I'll probably be able to get a little bit farther than that. A little bit further than that. This is something I like doing. I like these sculpture sketches, I call them, from a single photo reference. It's really helps you know where you're at. We're just going for simple shapes at this point. Cylinders, boxes, you know, an egg shape for the rib cage, a roughed out head shape, but nothing complex. The head right now is just like the start of a head shape from this angle, and then it's just a flat, you know, fairly flat from the other, from this side. It's just a thin piece of clay. So he's saying, hi, cool portrait you did in the last stream. Yeah, I liked how it was coming. I did the stream, maybe I did the stream too early. Maybe people weren't awake, because there was almost nobody during that last stream. In fact, there were sections where there was nobody watching, and I was just by myself, sculpting, alone in the world. But yeah, I liked how the portrait came along, which I was surprised, because the portrait's always tricky, and usually I really struggle with the portrait. But that one I was like, oh, hey, this is actually coming together in a way that looks decent. So that's always a pleasant surprise. And for the most part, almost all of those, you know, sketching during live streams, I'm well, I shouldn't say that. There are some turnout, I'd say. But I'm not as bad as I was expecting, because I haven't been drawing for a while, and it is one of those skills where if you don't do it, it goes away. Somebody says, sculpt Stewie Griffin. Well, I do take commissions if you're serious about it, but they start at $1,000. So you want me to sculpt a specific person, or do a specific sculpture for you? My commission started at $1,000. So is it worth it? Is it worth that much to you to have me sculpt Stewie Griffin? In your experience, is drawing or sculpting easier? Let's see. Well, I'd say whatever you enjoy more is what's going to be easier, because you don't have to force yourself to be interested in it. So, I'd say, you know, drawing, there are things about drawing that are easier. So you're just focused on one angle. Um, you're, if you're drawing something that's from a image, like you're drawing images, you're not doing a live drawing session. You're just drawing from an image. Then the image has already been translated from 3D to 2D, so that's an easier thing than drawing from life. I'd say drawing from life is difficult. If you've never done a live drawing session, it's more difficult than you think, especially if you've worked a lot from photos. And then you go to a live session and it's just different. It's just a different approach. So I'd say sculpting from life is probably just a little bit easier than drawing from life for whatever reason. You're also able to just like hold up your sculpture directly to the model. You can just close one eye and look right at the model through your sculpture, and get some like instant visual feedback on how the sculpture is going. And that is not as easy when you're drawing. You can't really do that with drawing. I mean, there's apps that'll do that, but I'm talking about a live model scenario. So if you're working from life, I'd say sculpting is just a little bit easier. But in general, sculpting is more difficult, like all around. Just like doing a finished sculpture takes a lot longer than a finished drawing. Sculpting is just one of those things that takes a while. Even like digital sculpting, which people are able to do a little bit faster, it's still often a very time-consuming process. You're drawing, but from every angle. So that's the tricky thing with sculpture. Is it just takes a while to develop everything from every angle. Or not everything, but the outline from every angle. Okay, so now, let's see. Got the arms. Let's go ahead and put some clay on the legs. Maybe I'll leave part of the legs uncovered, without clay, because people always ask, oh, is there an armature under there? So I'll wait a little bit. Maybe I'll just do the upper legs and then do the lower legs later, maybe the next session. So there's plenty to do before I need to worry about finishing that. And then I get when the clay gets firm and you're still trying to work it, I get like muscle cramps in my thumb because I'm just like squishing the clay. So this muscle in my thumb. That's where some people have said, "Oh, you have muscular hands." Well, I try to be in shape, but I think part of it is like sculpting just requires that you kind of have strong hands if you like using a firmer clay, which I like. Soft clay is just too easy to mess up. And if I was handling like the sculpture with a softer clay, I'd be like squishing everything and messing things up. But with this one, I can pretty much do it without worrying about that. What is the part of the human body you dislike sculpting the most? That I dislike sculpting. Part of the body that I dislike sculpting. Let's see. It's an interesting question. I've heard like the question, what's the most difficult? But what's the part that I dislike? So those aren't necessarily the same thing. Let me think about that. So I guess, wow, that's a question I haven't heard, and kind of, it's a different way of looking at it. What part of the body do I not like sculpting? I guess probably the back, The back is area where I think it's the same for people that draw, where it's just, it doesn't, you're not as familiar with it, so it's kind of strange. And then, you know, people generally don't spend a lot of time observing the back, and even, you know, people that are looking at your sculpture, even if the back is perfect, it's not what's going to make or break your sculpture. But at the same time, I don't want anything to be off, so I want to make sure that all the muscles feel right, and everything looks and works on the back. And so it's also a complex area. There's a lot of muscles and stuff, and unlike the torso, the front, you know, that we are more familiar with, and that's, I think, a little bit easier to study. The back is, it's just not as fun, I guess you could say, or as interesting visually, though it is, you know, it is visually interesting. So, but I guess if I had to choose, there's not really any part of the body that I dislike. There's parts of the sculpting process that I dislike, so I'm not a fan of like texturing, getting everything perfectly smooth. Even with like stone sculpting, the sanding and finishing sculptures is just difficult. And like making a mold and casting, you know, those boring parts of sculpting, they are but you have to do it, you know, you have to do those things, but they're not very fun. Let's see, I'm gonna try to get this rib cage a little bit more accurate. I feel like it's growing a little bit large. The female rib cage is smaller compared to the hips and compared to the rest of the body, and that kind of accentuates the hourglass shape that I want to have present in this. So I don't want the rib cage to become too thick. Let's see, I'm comparing the rib cage and the torso and the leg, this front leg, and trying to see how things are feeling. Somebody's asking, isn't the curve of the spine a bit too extreme? It could be. Yeah, it could be. But I'm not too worried about getting an exact replica of the reference image. More, let's see, I am seeing that, so maybe I am seeing that where the glutes end is a little bit behind the head, and I have it a little bit too close, these two things, so I am going to adjust that. And then I'll soften this transition with adding some clay in here. I'm going to remove some clay here from the rib cage. I do feel like the rib cage is getting too big compared to everything else. Somebody says, okay, let's twist it up a bit. What is the most part of the human body or what part of the human body do you like sculpting the most? Sculpting the most. I really like, the torso, the front part of the torso. On men or women is, I think, more interesting. The muscles of the torso, but I also like the difficult areas. So I like the as challenging as it is. I like the hands. I think they're very expressive. I like the portrait. Sometimes I don't, when they don't come together as fast or as easily as you want. But those are interesting areas that I think add a lot to the sculpture. So I do like those difficult areas. But torsos are also fun to sculpt. Let's see, now I'm just looking at the outline of the arm, and for relationships, the high points from this angle. Trying to find those. But yeah, I like the difficult areas, because when you do it well, then it's a lot more impressive than sculpting the easy areas. I'd say the torso generally is a little bit easier. The arms maybe a little bit easier, but the hands, the face, the portrait, those are the areas people look at to see if you actually know how to sculpt. And so those are fun challenges. And because everything is still thin, it's easy to make these high points a little bit disproportionate. Like, I want to move this high point of the muscles of the forearm. I want to move them up a little bit because of the thickness of the arm, but I just have to remember that everything is thin at this point. We want to keep things thin during these early stages so that we have some space for later on. And I think I do like the idea of doing one arm coming down almost like she's walking. Let's see. I can still move things if some of the stuff needs to be rearranged, though as the clay cools down and firms up, it becomes harder to make big changes. And if this clay is room temperature, then it can start to actually crack and things. So somebody's asking, do you sculpt mythical creatures like dragons or centaurs? I've done a dragon. I did a dragon on the main Proco channel before I ever did the figure sculpting fundamentals course, as a way to meet the team and kind of get some experience with them. That was before COVID, so we thought that what I was going to do was go to California to the Proco studios and film everything there. But then because of COVID, I filmed everything at my home, and I think it turned out being a good thing. But yeah, if you want to see me sculpting a dragon, it's kind of like a quick sketch. I think I had 3 days to do it, and it was kind of just a fun sketch. They thought a dragon from from what is the series? What is it called? It's a series, um, with the dragons. Game something. Game of Thrones, I think is what it is. But then after I felt bad, just because I was sculpting. I as you can tell, I wasn't a big fan. I haven't even watched Game of Thrones, so I wish I would have done something that I was more interested in. So I have done it, but I'm not that interested in mythical creatures. Maybe a centaur I would be more interested in because it's humanoid. But things that are like animals and or plants or other things, they just don't interest me as much. So I wish for that first sculpture with Proco I would have done something figurative, even if it was like something, a character or something. But it was good. It was a good experience, and it was good to meet the Stan's team and Stan Prokopenko and all of that. That was crazy. Yeah, that was and that was I was when I did that. I went to they were willing to fly me down and pay for the hotel and things to see if I would be a good fit with working for Proco to do the figure sculpting course. And when I did that, like I flew down, but I had like no money. So um so even like I took a well, maybe I had like $50. Maybe I had like $50 in the bank or something. But I couldn't buy food while I was there. I brought some snacks because we knew that I wouldn't be able to. But I had like some candy bars and things, and it was going to be like 2 or 3 days. And but I mean, Stan didn't know this, and nobody knew this, but then I was blessed because the first day, Stan was like, "Here, let's go to lunch, and I'll get you lunch." So he bought lunch for me, and that was like, I don't know if he realized, but if he hadn't have done that, like I wouldn't have been eating lunch that day. Like that was like my food. Um, that was my food ration, and I saved some of it to have it for dinner as well because I knew I was gonna be hungry later. And then there's like people that like brought bananas and some granola bars into the office, and I was like, "Hey, are these up for grabs?" Like, just because I was like, yeah, I was a poor, recently married student, very little income. Um, I think at the time I was working as a waiter, and most of the income was from tips, but I was only working part time and going to school full time, and so it was just a crazy time. And I got a headache when I went down to do that. So I was like, I wasn't even filming for very long, but the first day I got a pretty bad headache. I don't know if you'd call it a migraine, but it was a bad headache. And I was like, what is going on? So I was hungry. I was not feeling very good, um, physically. And but you know what? I just manned up and tried to do the best I could in the situation that I did. The sculpture, you can go and you can look at the sculpture on the main Proco channel if you just type in dragon or Game of Thrones dragon or something like that, and and it's fine. It's nothing spectacular. It was kind of fun to do, um, but but yeah, but that meeting allowed me to work on the on the course, and Stan felt good about doing a full course, and so that's why I'm able to be here doing this stuff that I still enjoy. And the money, the majority of my money comes from that online course, the figure sculpting fundamentals course and the portrait sculpting course and the hand sculpting course. That's like the majority of my income. And it's not a spectacular amount of money. I think like last year, if you averaged it out over the whole year, it was maybe like 2,500 a month, something like that in US dollars, which, is becoming less and less with inflation and everything. Everything's getting more expensive. And if I was able to maybe market better or have a little bit higher sales, then I probably would still be in Utah, because right now we moved to Iowa because Utah was getting like crazy expensive, and we had a goal as a family to get our first home. So, but because I was working for Proco, I was able to look at houses all over the country because I wasn't tied to a job, and none of my income was coming from like a job I had in Logan. So I was really able to look all over, and we found what I think is a good deal. It was a farmhouse in Iowa, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, if the course didn't give me some freedom to be able to move wherever. And but if you are able to move, people talk about how expensive everything is, and that's true. But our budget for our first home was, I think it was $95,000, what we were qualified for. Which, I mean, in Utah, there's nothing. You can't even get a mobile home in Utah for that. Like, you can't get anything in Utah. Well, maybe you could get a mobile home, but you'd still be paying rent basically to wherever you're parking the trailer, if you get a trailer home or whatever. So, we made some sacrifices. We left. I was living close to my mom and my brothers, and so we moved away from there and took an adventure and came to Iowa. But it's been good, it's good to, I think, be paying off a mortgage rather than renting. Even though what I didn't understand, when you have a mortgage, is like almost all of the money from the first part of the mortgage goes to interest. Like almost none of it. So you're paying like whatever it is. Ours currently, once you pay for insurance and everything else, ends up being like $800 a month, something like that. Which I'm sure, depending on where you live, that sounds great. But what I didn't understand is that like 770 is going towards interest or whatever it is. Or maybe of that 800, I think 500 is like towards the mortgage. And of that 500, what is it? It's like 480 is going towards interest, and then $20 a month is going towards paying off the principal. So that's just how they're structured, these loans. So yeah, it's been an adventure. It's been interesting, but if you are willing to make some sacrifices, you can have a lot of the things you want. You can't have everything you want ever, because you always want things you don't have. Well, unless you're extremely satisfied with what you have, which is a great thing. But yeah, so that's some thoughts on that. Let's see. Somebody's asking, how many siblings do you have? I have five brothers and one older half brother, and then three younger sisters. So there's from my mom, there's 9, and my 3 sisters are from her second marriage after my father passed away. and then my father had one older, so I have an older half brother that was from a previous marriage. So that's seven or six brothers from my mom and dad, and then on my dad's side there's one, my oldest brother, half brother, and then three sisters, half sisters, from my mom and stepdad after my father passed. So that is kind of the family. And yeah, so most of my brothers are still in Utah. I have one brother, the one that's just younger than me, so about a year younger than me. He works as in Border Patrol in Texas, and so he's the only one that's outside of Utah. Though my other younger brother might be going around the country. He's working as an arborist, cutting down trees, and I think during the winter his company's gonna ship him somewhere else where it's warmer. But I'm not sure about that. But I think they're all mostly in Utah. But Utah is so, rent and the real estate is so expensive. I don't know what my other siblings are gonna do to try to get their own houses. So yeah, I come from a big family. I like big families. They're not as common now as they used to be. Everybody used to have lots of kids, but now, and a lot of those kids didn't survive because life was hard. People talk about, life's too hard now to have kids. It's like, life's not hard now. Life was hard. Life was hard for everybody. And you had kids, a lot of them, about half of them would probably die before they're 10 or whatever. And so life was hard. Now, people are like, I can't bring my kids up into this world. It's like, what world? Like the safest world that we've ever had? The safest, most prosperous, richest world that's ever existed in human history? So, I guess that's my attitude. If you're considering, like, should I have kids? Yes, you should have kids. People, we need the next generation. It's a good thing. A lot of people are putting it off. But my kids are the best part of my life right now. There's nothing better. I've got 4, 2 girls, 2 boys, and they are my world. Somebody says the bigger the better. Yeah, I agree. I like big families. Let's see. So I'm just kind of just moving things around, trying to feel things out. I feel like I still have a little bit too much mass on the rib cage. I'm gonna come in with just a butter knife and push away some clay. Try to thin out this area. Same thing right here. We want to keep things thin during these beginning stages. Make sure we have enough space to add the clay. So if I feel like things are getting too thick, I'm going to come in and try to thin things down. Same thing on this back side with the back area. And I wanted, like, maybe I want to exaggerate the thinness. I mean, this person has a very thin, look at how thin the rib cage is compared to the thickness of the leg. The rib cage is almost thinner than the leg. And I want to include that. I want that almost is like it's a very rare thing to have a rib cage that small. So I want to make sure I'm not losing the part of what makes this pose really interesting. Kids are the best motivator to strive for better. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, people that have kids, they tend to make more money. They tend to do better in life because they have to, you know, because they, you know, most guys, you know, they can live off of, they don't need a lot, you know, to live off of. But once you have a family, then you have to make it work. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying having kids is easy, but it is worth it. It's definitely worth it. But easy and worth it are two different things. Usually the hardest things are the things that are worth it. Exercise, you know, is hard. Being fit is hard. Waking up early, you know, doing the things that you know you should be doing, all of that is hard. It's difficult. The easy stuff, that just comes naturally. We don't have to force ourselves to be interested in the easy stuff, in the stuff that just comes from comes naturally. The natural man. That's the easy stuff. Now I'm coming to this back side, or I mean, I should say, like, this is the view I have. I have this angle, so I want to try to capture it as accurately as possible from this angle, and then I want to make sure that this angle blends nicely with this angle right here from front to back. So the side view has to blend nicely with the front to back view, and have to figure out ways to do that feel right. Okay. Well, again, if you guys are interested in sculpting, I hope you will check out the links in the video description. There's a figure sculpting course that I highly recommend. That's where I recommend people start. If you're just like, I don't really know where to start, start with the figure sculpting fundamentals course. There's also a free PDF, so even if you don't have the financial resources, which is totally understandable, to purchase and join the full premium course, you can start with the free stuff. So those free video, or that free PDF, there's a link for that in the description. And you can download that, and it has links to all of the free lessons, and it's like an assignment checklist. So you just go through, watch the video lesson, do the assignment, and then you can upload it at Proca.com by creating a free account. If you'd like to do that, I encourage you to do that. And I try to give critiques to people that take the time to upload their assignments over at Proca.com. Even if you haven't purchased the course, I try to take the time to do that every once in a while. So I'm not there all the time, but so there's those PDFs. There's a free PDF for the figure sculpting course and the portrait sculpting course, and those PDFs are a great place to start. And then once you're ready to commit to the full course, then I hope you'll get that and join that course, and that helps me out immensely. And then there's also the ebooks that I have: An Artist's X-Ray Vision, One's on the male figure, one's on the female figure. They're both great resources. They have a lot of visual, like diagrams drawn over reference images to help you see more like an artist and think more like an artist. So purchasing those ebooks, I just switched over to Gumroad, so those should be available. If you go on my older videos, I think the link is not where I am selling those anymore. It's a different link. So you have to go to all. If you click the all links, if you go to that link, which just says all links, then it'll have the updated version on that page that's like a link tree page. So I hope you'll check those things out. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate anybody that does that. It's a huge blessing that I can do something that I love so much, and that people all over the world can benefit from what I'm trying to do, which is just help people get better at sculpting. And I think sculpting is a really fun, enjoyable, and worthwhile endeavor. I think becoming great at anything is worthwhile. So that's my goal, is just to help as many people as I can become great at sculpting. I think I'm going to leave this here for now, about right here. It's feeling like a good start. Let's see. It's got a ways to go, but I'm liking the start of this. And I'll try to work on this during a couple live streams. So this will be a couple live stream sessions, just like we did for this bodybuilder, where we did some live stream sessions. We'll do the same for this, and keep working on it until I get it maybe to around this stage. But this one, because it's a little bit larger, it goes a little bit slower. So it will take a couple sessions. All right, thank you guys for watching. Again, I hope you check out those links. If you have any questions or any thing you'd like to see in future videos, I hope you'll reach out and let me know. As always, I hope you can stay creative and stay productive, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in another video.